My name is Matthew Olson. My company is Signal Fire. We're located just outside of Lake Geneva in Delavan. We specialize in small and medium-sized business marketing. We especially do a lot of work in web development, social media, and overall graphic design. But what we really want to talk about here today is simply social media and how that applies to small businesses. Now, small businesses have a pretty steep challenge ahead of them when they're talking about social media. Who has the time to do it? How do you do it? Is it just simply setting up a few accounts and running? And that's kind of what we're going to talk about. What are some of the different platforms that are available? And really, how can you, as a small business, use it effectively? And when we talk about the hug, the handshake, and the hot cup of coffee, we really are getting down to Facebook, which is kind of like a hug, Twitter, which is pretty much like a handshake, and LinkedIn, which is a real good form of sitting down to have a hot cup of coffee with someone. And as we talk about these different platforms, we're going to also look at this and say, the hug, the handshake, and the hot cup of coffee might be a good way for your business to approach how you maintain those connections. Are you close enough with someone that you have them on Facebook? You'd give someone like that a hug. Someone you're connected to on Twitter, you'd probably wouldn't hesitate to stick out your hand and give them a good handshake. And if you're connected with them on LinkedIn, it might not be a bad idea to sit down with them and have a hot cup of coffee. And so as we're going through these different platforms, we really want to look at saying, okay, how do these principles apply to your business? And so as we start diving in, we first got to ask the question, well, really, what is social media? And over the past probably 2 years, it's one of the predominant questions that small businesses especially have. How can social media be used to help my business? And right away, you've got to ask the question of, what are some of the costs? How do I look for a return? How is it going to help me? Well, probably the number one thing about social media that so often gets overlooked is it's social. Social media, like business, is a contact sport. If you're shy or a wallflower in real life, you're probably going to be shy and a wallflower on social media. And that's exactly what you want to break. Walking over to the corner and saying, "Ooh, I set up my account. I'm here. Someone come talk to me." It's not going to work. It's going to be very focused on going out and saying, "Hi, Mike. My name is Matthew Olson. It's good to meet you." That's the same kind of attitude you want to project in social media. So it's connecting with people. It's focusing your business on the interests that surround your business. And one of the things we'll be talking about is something we refer to as interest communities. And as we look at interest communities, you ask the question saying, what ties my customers or my clients together? Is it simply my business, or is my business part of a larger culture? If you were with us in September, you heard me talk about Harley Davidson and interest communities. You're talking about, let's say, a middle-aged black executive out of Detroit and a 20-something factory worker out of Milwaukee. They've both purchased Harley Davidsons. How are they connected? They're not watching the same TV shows. They're not listening to the same radio stations. They're not reading the same magazines. And it's very unlikely that either of them are reading a newspaper. So how does a business like Harley reach both of them? More than likely, they're both looking at the same websites. They're both paying attention to the same user groups, Harley Owners Group or what have you. They're connected through that common interest, that interest community surrounding Harley Davidson. And the best way for them to reach them would be to join that community. Not shout at them, but be a part. And that's probably one of the biggest things about social media as we talk about, yes, it's social, but it's also interactive. And so one of the nicest things when you look at your business in this interest community, you really can take a deep, hard look at the idea of, can you be there to be a resource, a help, or do you want to be there just to jump up on a soapbox, shout your message, and leave the room? The whole point is, again, social, interactive, that sharing of knowledge, news, ideas. Those are the kind of interactive things that you're going to want to engage with in social media. Because that's probably one of the biggest things that is changing with brands right now is the whole concept of that relationship between the brand and the interest community. We're getting into an age of what I like to call of brands without borders. Geography is quickly going out the window in terms of usefulness. And so we look at that and look at that Harley Davidson example, and you look at the two individuals, and you suddenly realize that between the executive and the factory worker, that it doesn't matter where they're located. They're united in that interest community and also united on the web. And that's where social media is really going to be able to flex its muscles and get engaged with these interest communities, is in platforms more than likely they're already on and they're already talking about. Social media covers a lot of things, but I really boil it down to 3 key tips. If you're going to be in social media, a good friend of mine passed away a few years ago, gave me probably one of the best lessons. He was referring to leadership, but it also refers very much to social media. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you need to listen twice as much as you speak. And that same, if not even more so true, when it comes to social media. And that's something that as we go through and talk about these different platforms is to probably keep in the forefront of your mind, business is not personal social media. The way you behave on Facebook as a person is not going to be the same the way you behave on Facebook as your business. And you're going to want to understand how that differs and also start thinking about probably one of the most important aspects of your business is what voice does your business have? You look at the way the context on your website reads. You look at the way your marketing material reaches people. Whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not, your brand has a voice. Maintaining that voice and connecting that voice with your interest community is really what's going to take those kind of, yeah, okay, look at that, pass it away in a social media stream to that point of saying, oh, I want to leave a comment. I want to engage. I want to participate in that conversation. And when people do participate, that's the speaking part, you want to make sure you're responding. Listen to what people are talking about and respond. That response is actually probably one of the greatest tools at your disposal for social media is the ability to listen to what's being talked about in social media realms. And we'll talk about how the different platforms, how you can listen and how you can respond. So as you look at the social media, and in your mind, just as a quick show of hands for your business, how many of your businesses have a Facebook page? How many of your businesses have a Twitter account? How many of your businesses have a LinkedIn company page? And you're going to look at this and start thinking as we go through all of this, how this applies to your business. Because in the end, you do want to separate your business from your personal voice. And that sometimes can get overlooked very easily, especially in mediums like Facebook and Twitter, that you want to look at that and say, okay, I want to make sure your brand isn't necessarily personal, your brand is personable, approachable, interactive. And that's probably a real good aspect of looking at The rest of your plan is looking at that saying, okay, how can I be helpful in social media? Because that's probably one of the fastest ways to get people to disconnect on social media is to do nothing but stand up there and sell, 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 sell. People will tune you out as quickly as they're tuning out or fast forwarding commercials at home. It's that ability to be helpful, to be interactive. Show that you're listening, demonstrate that you're responding. And as we look at saying, what are some of the platforms for listening? Probably one of the greatest tools you have at your disposal right now is Twitter. And it's probably the number one questionable platform for business. Why? Twitter for a business is not about talking, it's about listening. And when we cover Twitter, we'll go into how you can listen so much more effectively. When you respond, you have that ability to have that digital handshake. Never before in marketing have you been able to singularly, as a brand or a business, respond to an individual so easily as you do on social media. To give you an example, we have a client that doubted us on Twitter. And I simply threw out a challenge. And I said, you know what? I can guarantee you I can go onto Twitter right now and find someone talking about exactly what your business covers. Wow. They sold copy machines. Do you think that, no one's talking about copy machines on Twitter? Exactly what you said. If theirs is broken down, they're talking about it on Twitter. But not only did I flip open the laptop, call up a Twitter search, and find not only was someone talking about copiers, someone was talking about them. All of a sudden, you realize a very important concept. Businesses no longer own their brands. Businesses have surrendered their brands to the consumers. Some may argue brands were never the property of businesses in the first place. We live and die by what our customers and consumers say about our products and services. And that's probably one of the greatest reasons that when you are out in social media, you're listening, you're responding, but most importantly, you're being helpful. That being helpful is critical from the standpoint of, remember, social media isn't all of us locked in a room and just talking about ourselves, oh, I won't get outside this room. Social media is best represented in a situation like Twitter. There are over 100 million active users on Twitter, people that are actively sending out tweets every day. There are 250 million tweets a day. And anybody on Twitter can listen to any or all of those tweets. They can search any or all of those tweets. So when you're helpful with a very big audience. And that becomes even more critical as you look at those three steps. Breaking it down, probably the easiest tips for your social media presence in business. First things first, it's not about you. And sometimes that's one of the hardest things for businesses to really understand that, hey, this isn't about my business. This is about me engaging and being helpful to the interest community. Because that interest community, sure, you'll have existing customers in there, you'll have potential customers in there, but then you'll have people that you have never even dreamed about watching and paying attention. When you're listening, it's very easy for someone to say, hey, I'm having this problem. Sure, no problem, come on over. Our software kit's $29.95. Call now and you'll get two. That's exactly what people don't want to hear, yet it's probably one of the things most commonly happening on social media is that, bang, I'm going to quick sell you because you have a need. Well, is that need really that product? Or do they simply need a question answered? Answering that question will very often be the gateway to being told you're the solution later. It's all about maintaining that conversation and building that conversation with that big, big audience. Because really, when you're on social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, Foursquare, a lot of other platforms out there. Don't think of it as you speaking to an audience. Think of it of you having that one-to-one personal conversation with someone and answering their questions. Because that interactivity is really what's going to get others to engage. And when I say when in doubt, engage, it's kind of that cocktail party mentality. You show up at a cocktail party, more than likely, you're not the first person. You know what, every once in a while you're the first person, but more than likely you're walking into a room where people are already talking. Now, are you going to be able to effectively network or effectively get to meet people, spend face time if that cocktail party's going on and the first thing you do is kind of walk off to the side and hide? Nope. You're going to walk into a conversation that's already started. You've got to take that opportunity to engage. And we break it down again to say, so as we've talked about these kind of basic principles, behind social media, how does that really relate to something like the hug, the handshake, and the hot cup of coffee? How does that really relate to your business? And we're going to take a look at each of these three platforms: Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And while you may be pretty familiar with some or all of these platforms, from a personal side, we're going to really focus in on how you look at it from a business perspective. So when we say the hug, Facebook, the handshake, Twitter, and the hot cup of coffee, LinkedIn, we really look at that as saying not only is it a way to kind of gauge relationships, it's also a good way to measure your behavior. And so when we talk about Facebook, yes, there are over 600 million users of Facebook. Does that necessarily mean there are 600 million people on Facebook? No. A lot of businesses will look at that and say, oh, if I have a Facebook presence, I don't need a website. Wow, that's a mistake. Do you want someone to have to create an account just to see your website? Do you want people to simply, how do I find these people on Google if they're just on Facebook? And here's probably one of the clinchers about Facebook. If you put it on Facebook, Facebook owns it. Do you really want the core of your business presence to be on Facebook? And that's kind of where you start looking at putting things on the scales of, is it personal, is it business? And probably one of the biggest things that hopefully each and every one of you have done with your business on Facebook is make sure it is on a business page. You have personal accounts, and some people have set up personal accounts for your business. If Facebook hasn't found you yet, they will, and they pull the plug on a business account set up as a personal account. So you need to make sure you set up a business page. And that's actually something you can do for free. It allows people to, instead of becoming your friend, they can simply like your page. And that's an incredibly powerful tool from the standpoint of your business. Someone likes your business from that business page, it gives you the opportunity to reach them with a message at any given moment. And you're going to look at that and say, okay, so when are people on Facebook? The average Facebook user is a woman, mid-40s, on average, checks Facebook 4 to 6 times per day. Now you look at that from an engagement standpoint saying, okay, how do we time that? How are you getting your message across? How can you keep that conversation going? Now, Facebook still gives you the opportunity to post photos, share a video, simply post a message, or post a link. And that is probably one of the most important things to remember about social media. It's a vehicle, not a destination. Social media is what's going to carry people from that conversation deeper to get more information to eventually, I want to get a different graphic there, to your website. Your website is probably the most crucial element to your social media presence. Why? Like I said, social media is a vehicle. Where's that vehicle going? Hopefully to your website. Why do you want them on your website? That is your branded experience. That is where you'll be able to show them, give them the opportunity to purchase, give them an easy opportunity for them to contact you. It puts them in this cozy, comfortable, branded experience that allows that engagement to go to the next level and transition to that real life, face-to-face, or online purchase. And that's exactly, in the end, for a business, what you really need from social media. More sales, more purchases, more leads, more engagement. And whether it's coming from referring sites, chambers of commerce, professional organizations, search engines like Google, Bing, Yahoo, social media, or other forms of your online advertising, whether if you've purchased advertising on a blog, or if you're setting up a Google AdWords account and paying for pay-per-click advertising. All of these things are critical and act as vehicles coming to your website. When we talk about being a vehicle and how useful Facebook is, one of the things Facebook does really well is sharing information that is connected to your immediate community. Everybody who likes your page gets this awesome stream of information. Links, pictures, videos, all these things are great places for people to engage. Only problem is, it stops there. Facebook is an incredible engagement platform, but it's really a platform that we call as one generation deep. And now Facebook's been making improvements with the share button and a lot of ways to share content either on Facebook or from Facebook to other users. But at its heart, Facebook really is a one generation deep platform. And what do I mean by one generation? People who already like your business fan page will get that message pretty quickly. But when you have to have those people who have gotten that message share it out to people not already within your sphere of influence, that becomes a lot more difficult. It's not in its nature an easily shareable platform. So you're always looking to get people to like your page and then hold on to them with a good stream of content. So as you look at things as your job isn't done when people have hit the like button, your job's just beginning. As we look at social media, probably one of the greatest challenges that is going to beset social media in the next year is not what you're saying, it's who's saying it. There's an expression with social media that content is king. Well, there's a rising heir apparent if content is king, and that's context. What is the framework of your message? People no longer can just look at your Facebook page, ooh, I like them, click like, and they're part of the conversation. Now you have to compete for space in their social media stream, because not only do they like you, they probably like dozens of other businesses. And Facebook now gives you the ability to sort these likes into groups. And people then can show and hide these groups in their stream. So you have to demonstrate with the material you put on Facebook why you should belong in the stream they look at every day. Simply posting messages doesn't guarantee that they're read any longer. You've got to compete. You've got to give them something worthwhile. It gets back to that rule number 3. How are you being helpful? Especially when you're looking at a B2B environment, you run into a situation, a fantastic commercial from American Express had this little itty bitty line on it that probably was pretty well overlooked. If you can help my business, you'll get my business. So especially if you're in a B2B environment, a business-to-business environment, where your clients are mostly other businesses, you ask that question, can I help their business? Because if you can help their business, demonstrate that you are able to help that business, then you're more likely to get their business. And it always gets back to that, how are you being helpful? Now, in a business to consumer or a B2C environment, you also have to look at that same question. How is the information that you're putting together in the context of what you're putting together going to be helpful and useful to the consumer, the customer, the client? And that's ultimately what you want to really be kind of gauging your success on. How well am I reaching people? And one of the things that we talk about messages and we talk about social media as a vehicle. How well do you remember your high school physics classes? Probably not very well. But we're going to touch back on a kind of a frequently forgotten part of physics. Speed versus velocity. Speed. I can be running 55 miles an hour in place. I would be a lot thinner. But I'm not going anywhere. My speed is 55 miles an hour, but I'm standing still. Now, if I add directionality, I'm running 55 miles an hour south. Not sure if that's south or not. But now I'm going somewhere. Same kind of principle should apply to your social media. Where can they go? You've just put together a fantastic post on Facebook. Where do you go from there? Did you give them the vehicle or the directionality to carry that conversation further? Sure, they're invited to post, connect, and ask questions, but did you drive them back to a web page where they can place that order, request a quote, sign up for a class? Those are all things that you've got to give them directionality. You've got to give them that opportunity to take that interest community connection, that relationship. How many times have you guys heard, let's take the relationship to the next level? That's exactly what you want from your social media outreach. You want to make sure that you understand the difference between speed versus velocity. You want to not only put out that good message, but give them the opportunity to take that message further. And as we look at this graphic again, it becomes even more readily apparent on why this funnel becomes even more important, because you're connecting with these people and potential customers all throughout this spectrum focusing them down, bringing them to your website. Once they're there at the website, you can't necessarily assume they're going to come to your homepage first. How easy is it for them to engage and get more information, whether it be they've come in through a blog post, and they need to get ordering information, they've come in through a Google search specific about a product or service, how easily can they order, or how easily is your contact information available? Same question can be said about FAQs. Same question can be said if they've seen a video of you on YouTube or see an embedded video of you on the website. How easy is that to make that connection from one portion of the website over to the next portion of the website? So in the end, like I said, social media being a vehicle, not a destination, when they reach that destination, be sure it's easy to take the relationship to the next level.
So Matthew, are you saying that with each of your posts, you might post on Facebook, that then at the bottom of your post you would have a link back to your own site?
A lot of times, yes. There's going to be obviously exceptions. If you're putting information out there saying, hey, this is a fantastic blog post, and it's from XYZ writer for the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, what have you, being able to share information, even via links, even if it's not to your website, also starts taking stock into what's referred to a lot of times as social capital or social currency. And your point is a very, very good one from the standpoint of saying sharing that information and having that information be good gives people a higher level of trust in what you're saying. And that's something, I only want to send them to my website. Don't necessarily fall into that trap. It's good to say, hey, this is a very relevant article from USA Today, Newsweek, what have you. Connect them to that and just start building that level of saying, that's really useful information. Okay, he's keeping an eye out for information that's relevant to me. And that's where that level of trust gets even higher, and that's where making sure those links are there becomes an even more valuable transportation tool for the people already connected to you. And so when it comes to, as we take that example, the same kind of standpoint can be taken over to Twitter.